approve the budget, which is the end of that ruling process. So with that, I will ask Noel to call the roll. Here.
Here.
Present.
Here.
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 Thank you. Let's rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We now move along to item 3 on the agenda, which is the adoption of the FY 2023-2024 general fund operating budget. And with that, for the resolution, I will turn this over to our esteemed budget chair, Mr. David Bowery. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. Let me put the motion on the floor. If I may, be it resolved that the town council approves resolution 042623-1, fiscal year 24 general fund operating budget. Be it resolved that the Cheshire Town Council appropriates the following amounts for the town of Cheshire general fund operating budget for fiscal year 24. General government, $38,348,241. Debt service, $7,634,493. Contingency, $125,000. Capital non-recurring, $1,900,000. Be it resolved that the town of Cheshire appropriates the amount of $84,993,429 for the Board of Education budget. C, be it further resolved that the sum of all revenues, transfers from other funds, and allocation of general fund equity for the fiscal year 24 Town of Cheshire general fund operating budget will be in the amount of $133,001,163. And D, be it further resolved that the tax rate be set at 35.9 mils, which will generate $103,779,305 at a collection rate of 99.2% for the fiscal year 2024 for real and personal property, and the tax rate for motor vehicles is set at 32.46 mils per the state of Connecticut motor vehicle mill rate cap, and that the tax payments for motor vehicles and personal property shall be due and payable in one payment on July 1, 2023, and that the real estate tax payments shall be paid in 2 equal payments, with the first payment due on July 1, 2023, and the second payment due on January 1, 2024, and that pursuant to Section 12-144 of the Connecticut General Statutes as amended, that any real estate tax bill on the 2022 grand list in an amount not in excess of $100 shall be due and payable in a single installment on July 1, 2023. And that pursuant to sections 12-142 and 12-146 of the Connecticut General Statutes as amended, the last date for payment of taxes due on July 1, 2023 will be August 1, 2023. Therefore, payment of taxes due on July 1, 2023, which are received after August 1, 2023, will be assessed interest calculated from the original due date of July 1, 2023. The last date for payment of taxes due July 1, 2024 will be February 1, 2024. Payment of taxes due on January 1, 2024, which are received after February 1, 2024, will be assessed interest calculated from the due date of January 1, 2024.
Thank you. We have a motion. May I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Jenks. We have a second. I will ask David to sort of say what you may want to say about the budget, since not everything is said in those 4 numbers up top, whatever you feel.
Thank you.
And your other counterparts.
All right. I'll be brief because we've had 9 workshops where we have as a council, and my thanks and the assistance of all of this has to go to the town manager and to his staff, Arnett and Jim and the department heads. Absolutely amazing how you present the budget in the easy, award-winning, understandable way, but also that the community can understand it as well. But you give us our options. And that's the important thing as the policymakers. You set forth what our options are within this. And I think that's valuable for us to do our job and very helpful. It's a great resource. I have to say, I've worked with 10 different town councils, and this is the one that has worked the best in terms of being bipartisan and non-acrimonious and working all well. And it's great to know that the public should know that all 9 of us work up here very hard to serve the constituents, and there are no other agendas when we come here, and other than what's best for the town. And I think this budget at a 0.7 million increase at 2% increase in taxes is reasonable. It gives us the level of services that the residents come to expect. The Board of Ed will be given enough money to handle the additional students that are coming in and keep the buildings that are not being replaced in good condition. We have for the general town government some adjustments in increase in staff where needed, like in the building department and human services department, which we've all talked about, and we know that those are areas that have a need. And the building department is one that certainly helps with the increase in the grand list. We're fortunate that we're only looking at a 2% increase in the tax rate and still able to provide all these services to our residents because we have a very active economic development coordinator, a department that Town of Cheshire says we're ready to do business. So people who want to come in from other towns, people who are here that want to expand, know that we have that, know that we're welcoming them, and that helps grow the grand list considerably, and that helps us to continue services at this low increase in the tax rate. A couple of items of more detail. We are using $1.7 million of our fund balance. That's the same amount we used last year. So I think that's reasonable and prudent. Could we have used more and maybe lower the mill rate slightly? Yes. But one of the things that this budget does is it also sets our account balances to proper levels so that when we have debt service jumps and some big cliffs, which are going to have 2, 3, and 4 years down the road, we have the resources, hopefully, at that time to be able to mitigate that quite a bit and be able to have a reasonable tax rate as we move along. And I know 60% of the people voted for the school, and that's going to add to the debt service. But at the same time, we can do all we can in our power to make sure that we're not spending at such a high level now or taxing at such a high level now that it'd be harder to do it later, or taxing so low and using all our resources that we don't have funds to properly manage the debt service cliff. So with that, I urge adoption of this. I hope it is going to be as unanimous as we have had agreements during our budget workshops. And I'll pass the floor back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I would go to the other 2 members of the Budget Committee, if they so desire, to make any comments, and then we'll go from here down.
Sure. I obviously concur with everything David said, and I'd like to thank him for his leadership. It's my second time working through the budget with Jim and David, and they both are really a pleasure to work with. And David's leadership and experience here is really extremely valuable for our community. I also would like to note that, again, I want to recognize how serious and I think conservative all of our department leads are, including our Board of Education, in terms of trying to do the best they can to utilize the town funds as conservatively as possible and put forth budgets for each of their departments, and including the Department of Education, that is really respectful of each member of our community. So thank you all. Thank you, David. And again, thank you all the department heads for the way they brought this forward.
Take your microphone back.
Yeah, I just would concur with everything that has been said to this point. It's always an interesting process to be involved in the budget, and the town staff, Sean and Jim and Arnett and everyone involved, just you guys do an incredible job kind of setting the stage for us. So it is a and with David's leadership, it's a very effective process that we have. So thank you very much for all that. There are just kind of 2 or 3 items that I disagreed with as far as the budget goes, but they're not to the point where I'm going to not support this budget. I felt that we maybe could have done a little more for the schools, but we have assurances from the schools that the cut that we made is not going to affect the delivery of instructional services in the classrooms. So that's important that not be, impacted in any way. The Board of Ed had already made a substantial cut, so I felt that perhaps ours should not have been quite what it was. But as I said, we had assurances, so I feel like given where we are, we could move forward. A couple other items. One I can't really speak to, but one that I can speak to has to do with the bulky waste, which we discussed in open session. As far as as I mentioned, that to me it's a 3-year cycle is probably more cost effective, or it is more cost effective. So it makes more sense for us to do that next year rather than this year. I think we are kind of drawing down a bit more of the ARPA funds. So but at least we have those from the Biden administration to use at this time. So that's why I'm going to be supporting this budget this year. And thank you everyone for your efforts.
Thank you for that, Mr. Jenks. Now I'll just start with Sandy and we'll work our way this way,
Sure, thank
skipping
you.
me and going the rest of the way.
I'll keep my comments brief because I don't want to repeat what everyone else is saying, but this is a bipartisan budget. We work very well together and we have the opportunity to take in a lot of material and ask a lot of questions. And when we make these decisions, we make them for the benefit of the town of Cheshire and to make sure that we can provide all the services that we can at a nominal fee and not burden our taxpayers. It's been a pleasure working with all of my colleagues and also David and all the town hall staff providing us with all the material. And I will definitely approve this budget.
Mr. Belliber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will echo the sentiments that have been already mentioned, but also, again, just point out that it's a pleasure dealing with this council and the way this council has worked together on this budget, and with all the members, Sean and Arnett, and all the members of staff and all the department heads, really bringing this budget together and helping us, we think, bring together with the best budget we can for the town. I think this is a fair budget that's thoughtfully put together and presented to meet the needs of the town and the Board of Education while keeping the mill rate increase to a low and conservative increase. I think it also prepares our finances for the future. As mentioned, we've got some big ticket items coming to the schools, and we need to prepare for those things. I wish we could have maybe made a few more reductions in the budget to keep the mill rate a little lower, but this budget is a significant reduction from where it was presented, and we'll do a great job for the needs of the community to help Cheshire, keep Cheshire a wonderful place to live, raise a family, and maintain businesses. I'd also like to say that I'm very happy that the bulky waste pickup is in this budget, and I know I'm looking forward to that. I know a lot of residents are looking forward to that. So I'm happy that we're able to maintain that in this budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Belliber.
Well, thank you for my turn. This is the 12th spring season that I've spent 3 nights a week with the budget book, and it's really fascinating. It was an interesting job this time. I'm not going to repeat all of the things that my colleagues have said are absolutely true. Jim Jinks, you are wonderful at providing us information that even I, who is not a math genius, can figure out. Jascott, sorry. No. Well, all right, Jim too. Jim, I'm looking right at Jim. Okay. Jim Jascott, sorry about that. So 12 years has been a long time. You've sat across from this table, and every year you provide us with the necessary figures that we have to go through. And the town staff is wonderful at being able to present it to us in easy to understand format. I would urge the residents who are listening to us tonight to take these comments to heart. We did work together. We all had disagreements along the way, which were sometimes a little bit testy, but not really. We all were working to keep Cheshire in the right place. But if you have questions, why don't you turn on channel, is it 13? 14. See, I come to the meeting, so I don't have to watch it. Channel 14, YouTube, so that you can see. So if you have questions about what we discussed, you can see each one of our opinions on certain topics. So again, I'm glad to have completed this March, and now I'm looking forward to a few weeks with no meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. And Mr. Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I want to echo my thanks to town staff, Jim, Sean, Arnett, Noel, Mr. Bowery, who has led us again. It's nice to have him come up with the numbers and basically put them in front of us and say, how do you think we should do this? Because I'm a businessman, but I know enough to hire an accountant and a bookkeeper to handle my finances. But I can make decisions, and that's what I like to do. So I appreciate you putting it in plain information for us. Thank Dr. Solon and Vin Masiano, who understood why we had to make the cuts we had to. It's just the way that we are looking at everything. We're the fiduciary. We have a fiduciary responsibility for this town, and we need to make sure that we were elected to do that. And we want to make sure that we are following what we were elected to do. I did hear a comment that the cuts we made were nickel and diming the Board of Ed, and I want to say this is not nickel and diming. We take every dollar we cut seriously. We look at everything, and we understand that with every cut we make, it's going to have an effect on something. And we know, though, that we have good leadership, whether it's in the schools or in our departments, where they will make sure that they can still run their departments effectively and efficiently with the money that we are giving them. One of the things that was mentioned, we have had some terrific grand list growth over the last several years. And I see we're going to continue that over the next several years, which is going to help us. We are in the midst of some of the largest construction projects this town has ever seen. In a few years, we're going to have 2 brand new schools. We're going to have a brand new park. We're going to have a beautiful area up in the North End with shopping and restaurants, some new homes and apartments. We're no longer going to kick the can down the road. The can is gone. We've stopped kicking it. We're at the point now where we're ready to move forward, and this is the time to do it. So we are making sure that this budget is going to be one that we are preparing for the future, because in a few years we're going to hit these peaks that we're going to have to offset somehow. And I think with the leadership that we have up here, we are going to be in good shape. So I fully support this budget as it is. I too am happy about the bulk trash pickup. I think the town expects that and needs it. And we have to remember that we are also, not just doing this for the children of our town who go to the schools, but we have seniors, we have single people, we have businesses who all are affected by the mill rate we set. So we have to look at everything when we do this. So thank you. And I want to thank my colleagues up here, because like everybody has said, we've worked well together, had some gives and takes, but at the end of the day, we're all happy that we're at the end, and I think we have a good manageable budget. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Mr. Talbot.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll end the suspense right away. I'm going to support the budget tonight. So I think you've got your unanimous vote, Mr. Budget Chairman. The thank yous are important as well. Sean Kimball, our town manager, Arnett Talbot, the assistant town manager, certainly Noel Shepherd does a great job. Jim Jascott, our finance director, Gina and his entire staff, all the department heads and their staffs participate in this, either directly or indirectly. Thanks as well to Dr. Solon, Vin Masiana, everyone over on the other side of the street from Board of Education. Mr. Walsh brought up an interesting comment, and he said, people say we're maybe nickel and diming the Board of Education, and I would take a little umbrage with that. This budget process, and Sylvia, I tie you with an even dozen budgets now. This is not done in a vacuum. We have constant conversations with all the departments, And there aren't cuts that are made that aren't discussed with the specific areas prior to them being done. So I think this is a fair budget. You know, it's probably the thing that this council does that that we get the least amount of credit for, and probably the most blame for, because no matter where the number comes down, someone is going to say you cut too much or you cut too little. So it's this is a good compromise. It increases services and looks at areas that are critical for the town to move forward. Specifically, I think, Mr. Barrow, you mentioned the Human Services Department and the Building Department. Those were critical areas that we addressed. We pulled 1.1 million out and utilized, judiciously used ARPA funds. So as Mr. Jinks mentioned, you know, thank you to the Biden administration as well for providing those funds, which allowed us to do the bulky waste and still be able to come up with a reasonable mill rate. I want to thank my colleagues, Budget Chairman Barowie for his leadership. And I will thank Mr. Jinks because him and I have a lot of conversations as this plays out over the course of several weeks. And we provide a good ear for each other to bounce ideas off of. So thank you all for the process. It's a long, arduous process. And now we go into capital. So, you know, just because the summer can't get any more fun. So, but I will be supporting the budget tonight, and thanks to my colleagues again.
Thank you for that, Mr. Talbot. Thank you for that, all of you. I guess I get to say a few things last, and I think I'm fine with that. I'm happy to be in this seat. I can say that I've sat on the dais here, or behind the dais, for 16 budgets, 2 town managers, and one thing I'm sure of, the town managers have never gotten their budget right. They are good, though, at arbitrating the changes that are necessary and helping us filter what we can throughout that process, you know, to get it right as we have all declared it's right. Hopefully it's right. The other thing that's changed in my 16 budgets is the presence of the citizenry in the process. And I watch I review our meetings. I watch them. I don't watch all of them, but I mean the full course. But, you know, I also see on the YouTube channel 14 that, you know, we get 85 views, we get 55 views. There's not a lot of public input. So we are really up here with almost more responsibility to sort of get this right and hopefully not waiting to election day to learn we got it wrong. But it is a little hard with the dearth of commentary that we do get from the public. And that's not to say we don't get input in the grocery stores and other places. And I think that can't be, you know, misunderstood. The other thing that's very interesting is that we do work very collaboratively, and this is a change, not by design, but by better circumstances with the Department of Education, the Board of Education. And I think we do so because we realize, even though they don't set a mill rate and they don't actually do a budget, they understand they're the biggest part of the budget, and they play a huge role in educating, you know, roughly 35% of the households in this town. And what I've come to really this year recognize, I think for the first time, where the Board of Education presented us with a budget that actually was in disagreement with the superintendent of schools, sort of like what we always do to the town manager up here. And with that, they zeroed out budget increases in several areas to arrive at roughly $500,000 worth of cuts before it ever saw, you know, the council. We're almost always faced with looking at their budget knowing we can't change a line item. We just get to change the amount. And I think for Adam Grippo and Tony and the members of their hardworking body to have given us that leg up, if you will, and more fulsome understanding of their process. And one they have to do very early in the process. So they don't even know everything. I really am probably talking too much. But to make a long story short, we did cut their budget still a bit more. We managed to shave another $365,000 off their budget. And we did so in the face of knowing that there's about 50 more kids projected for next year. But it's not in every grade. It's across all the grades. So we know that they can work with it. And I received assurances from Adam Grippo, who is sort of their budget chair, if you will, that he thought it was very, very manageable. And of course, he understood. He chopped, at his advice, $500,000 from the superintendent of the school's budget. So I'm very comfortable. Just as Peter said, it's not a heavy lift for the Board of Ed. I know it's a lift they can do because, well, half of them have advanced degrees over there. So, what can I say? The other thing is we're doing the last couple of budgets, maybe 2 anyway, with 8 new department heads. Do I have that right, Sean? That's been wonderful for a council like this to work with a number of new department heads and to actually help them put their training wheels on, if you will. And I don't mean to be coarse or anything, but to really understand what the council wants, expects. They've got a manager who, of course, has his expectations, which are very high. But all of it has come together in such a way that I could only support this budget, with my arm going up. I think it's obviously my colleagues are fantastic. We all have Christmas parties together and send each other birthday cards, but we really do, as a council, work quite well together. And I like that. I mean, who wouldn't like that? Especially looking at America today, where half goes forward on the bicycle pedal and the other half goes the other way. That's just the way it is, and things usually sort themselves out over time. So with that, the last thing I will say, prior to the budget process, we did the perfunctory thing we always do because we have to do it by a statutory date. We reviewed the senior tax relief because we recognize in town, not all new houses, it's not full of all new young people with huge incomes. And we did increase the levels, and it was a significant change, I believe, that will help more taxpayers that are seniors, that is, have some mitigation, if you will, to their tax burden. So with that, all I can say is I'm very supportive of the budget. I appreciate all the departments, finance in particular, because they are very, very helpful at this time. But we have a very hardworking town manager's office. We have Annette Talbot, Noel Shepherd. These people really, 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 really are worth their pay grade. They work very hard. They work overtime, and they work on a moment's notice for members of this body. And so for that, I really want to say thank you. I don't walk into every office in town and say thank you to them, but this is my opportunity to do so. They're good folks. We're very fortunate to have good people. We're very fortunate to have a few new good people as well. So with that, I will now call for a vote, cut off my voice, and we'll take it from there. All those in favor of the motion before us signify. Any opposition? No opposition. Motion carries. So with that, Mr. Budget Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one amplification. Not only did we significantly increase the senior tax, veterans and disabled as well. So it's a significant portion of our community that receives significant increase from us unanimously. And the topic at hand is the Water Pollution Control Department Fund budget. So be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution 042623-2. Fiscal year 2024 Water Pollution Control Fund operating budget, be it resolved that the Cheshire Town Council appropriates a sum of $4,726,124 for the Town of Cheshire Water Pollution Control Fund operating budget for fiscal year 2024, and that the sum of revenues and allocation of Water Pollution Control Fund equity for the fiscal year 2024 Town of Cheshire Water Pollution Control Fund operating budget also be in the amount of $4,726,124. And be it further resolved that the Cheshire Town Council recommends that the Water Pollution Control Authority consider setting the sewer use charge at $450 per year effective December 1, 2023. And be it further resolved that the Town Council hereby supports implementing an option for semi-annual payments of the sewer use charge as soon as WPCA determines it is practicable.
Motion, may I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Mylone. Discussion.
Just briefly, that last paragraph is probably the only new thing here for us to consider, is that we have talked about asking that the bill be semi-annual to line up with the taxes. So the payment would be July and January. It will not be effective for the coming fiscal year, but the implementation of the logistics to have it become effective for the following fiscal year is what's going to be worked on.
Thank you for that. Any other comments on a motion that's very important to a good segment of our local economy?
Business.
Okay. That being done, we can flush this one out with a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Now we go to 5, which is the adoption of the FY 2023-2024 Community Pool Fund operating budget. Mr. Bowery.
Mr. Chairman, be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution 042623-3, fiscal year 2024 Community Pool Fund operating budget. Be it resolved that the Cheshire Town Council appropriates a sum of $1,129,794 for the Town of Cheshire Community Pool Fund operating budget for fiscal year 2024, and that the sum of revenues and transfers from other funds and allocation of Community Pool Fund equity for the fiscal year 2024 Town of Cheshire Community Pool Fund operating budget also be in the amount of $1,129,794.
We have a motion. May I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Talbot. Discussion?
Just briefly, if I may, the good news is I believe this is the least subsidy that we have had to give. The pool is getting closer to self-sufficient. Never really was envisioned to be self-sufficient financially because it was thought of as a greater good for the community, but it's getting closer and closer through management's good stewardship of that program. So thank you.
Any other comments? I think the one thing I would note, when we discussed that budget in particular, we did really note, and it was discussed, that it's really swimming lessons and things of that nature, which may, in fact, as there are more younger people in town, which there seem to be more students coming in, that may even provide some pressures and advantages to us over the line. But it is good to see they're doing so well, because that, in many budget cycles, was a huge bone of contention for the town of Cheshire. So we're glad to see that change. Okay, I will call for a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, with that, we move to the adoption of the amendment to the general fund balance policy. And I think this one, after you read the motion, will require some
Yes,
explanation for the public.
absolutely. All right, Mr. Chairman, be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution 042623-4. Be it resolved that the Town Council approves the revised fund balance policy with a minimum maintained general fund balance increase from 9.25% to 10% as presented and attached.
Thank you. We have a motion. Thank you, Mr. Talbot. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman, this was part of the budget discussions during our many workshops, and several things call for us to consider this. One is the credit rating agencies. They review us and decide what our rating is. And a AAA rating, there are very few communities in the state that have that. That provides for the lowest interest rates. And lower interest rates mean literally millions of dollars over years in saved debt service payments. So the fact that we want to do what's necessary to keep the fund balance, to keep the credit rating agencies to continue giving us the best credit rating is important. We are at 12% roughly now in fund balance. So this going from 9.25 to 10% does not hamstring us in any way. It still allows us to have funds in the fund balance that we could use to mitigate rate increases when the full effect of the school, the new school comes into the debt service 2, 3, 4 years down the road. I think Mr. Talbot mentioned that when we were having negotiations, we want to leave some money in there when we were all discussing. That's important that we leave money in the fund balance. It's important that that grow because that's our savings account, if you will. But flip side is it's important that we don't have 15, 18, 20%. Communities that have those high numbers, to me, that's overtaxation. There needs to be some balance in there. And I think this is a fair balance that we aim for 10%, have a little bit more than that so that we have money for a rainy day or for mitigating big cliffs in our tax rate, which could come up in a couple of years when the schools come in. So I think the policy that we try to have 10% is solid. We already beat that anyway. So this is just putting in writing our policy that we are effectively doing anyway, and that will help us with our credit ratings that the agencies will give us, and that will help us with our debt service.
Comments, questions? Mr. Talbot?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just kind of amplifying a couple things that Mr. Barowie said. Originally we had a policy that was around 8%. It went up to 9%. It currently sat at 9.25%, and we're gonna bump it up tonight. Presumably, we're gonna bump it up tonight to 10%. We've never been below, I don't think, 10% since I've sat on this council. So I think this is a good policy adjustment to set. And as Mr. Barowie mentioned, I would encourage future councils to utilize this fund balance, especially with the interest from the 2 new elementary schools that will hit in future years, that we utilize these funds, anything above the 10%, to debt service so that we smooth those spikes, very similar to what we did with one-time revenues and general fund balance to smooth the spike from the wastewater treatment plant, which was a $32 million payment that we made. So obviously spread over years, but you can see how that can do a big rise in taxes, and we've been able to smooth that. This is an even bigger spike, and I hope that we can, or I would encourage future councils to utilize this money judiciously to be able to do the same thing. So, and I will absolutely support the increase to 10%. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for that. Anyone want to talk about the fund balance? I call it the fund balance. Because every year, it is something that we use to help us along with the budget because you don't remember the resolution, but we never count 100% of tax receipts as part of the budget. We assume a lower amount, not by huge amounts, but it gives you a little wiggle room. When we finally bankrupt the taxpayers. So basically, we use some of that excess money that comes in and other sources of funds that just happen to come in. Sean, you had mentioned one of the reasons our surplus was so large was $600,000 because of something. I forget what it was. It was very interesting.
That's correct.
That's one of the reasons it
the
got so
town's
large.
share of the sales tax revenue that was given to the towns this year, about
Right.
$550,000. That's right.
Right. So there are things that can make it larger than one would think. And typically, we've not taken, I don't believe, as much as we took this year. Or am I mistaken? You said it was the same. It's the same. Right. So, but those probably 2 years back to back are perhaps more than we've been able to utilize in the past.
Yes.
So, it's all good stuff. So with that, if there's no other things to say, I'll call for a vote on this. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, I guess we're here at adjournment. This is when all of us are going to say, gee.
Just wanted to wish Arnett a happy birthday.
Oh,
Tonight is
Arnett.
her birthday.
Oh, shall we sing it? Happy birthday to you. you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Arnett. Happy birthday to you. Very good. It's okay. We'll never do it again. And none of us care how old you are. Okay, now I'll call for a vote to adjourn or a motion to adjourn. All those in favor? Motion carries. Good night and thank you all.